Acquire is one of the most successful game designs by the late American designer Sid Sackson. Originally published in 1962 and coming in and out of print among various publishers since then, we're playing with a 1999 Hasbro edition here, it's a semi-abstract economic simulation that casts the players as independent investors, shrewdly purchasing stock in several rival corporations, and then doing their best to influence those companies' growth in ways that benefit the principal stockholders the most. Players take turns laying down tiles that represent the growth of several rival corporations across a board that represents the total market they're competing over. Unlike other tile games we've covered on the show, each tile can only go in exactly one place on the board, but each player holds a hand of 5 tiles, so they still have plenty of choice in their turn. They may then buy stock in those companies up to 3 shares per turn. A company's stock price varies depending upon its size, which is simply a function of how many tiles it occupies on the board. The title of the game doesn't refer to players acquiring stock. That's easy. Everyone starts with plenty of cash to buy a lot early on, but the companies acquiring one another. These mergers and takeovers form the core events of the game. A merge happens whenever a player lays down a tile that connects 2 companies, at least one of which has to be 10 tiles or smaller in size. The larger company then acquires the smaller one, annexing all of its tiles into itself. The 2 players with the most stock in the company getting acquired score big cash bonuses, and then all players with stock in the acquired company can either liquidate their holdings for cash or trade. You can also choose to hold onto stock. If that company comes back into play later, you'll get a head start on it.
Yeah,
it's bad when you don't have money. Oh, is it bad when you don't have money?
The money thing is awful.
I think I don't care.
Yeah?
And I'm merging money anyway.
Oh my.
Nice. I've done that.
Oh, quantum disappears.
So
Nice.
Quantum disappears.
This is kind of exciting.
Wait, hold on.
So Quantum's at 5.
Quantum's at 5.
So Quantum's at 5, so the majority stakeholder gets 7,000.
It's you,
Involved in that.
It's me.
right?
American? No.
No, for Quantum. We're liquidating Quantum.
Quantum's smaller.
Yeah,
Okay,
your
right.
ship has come in.
Jeez.
Quantum's
I'm about to get just...
the minority gets
Blown
3,500, and that's you.
And I will certainly take some cash right now. Thank you.
And now,
Wait, and the 3 of us have...
and now we divvy up
Oh.
stock.
Earlier in the game, it tends to be a better idea to sell off your acquired stock because that's what gives you more working capital. Later on, however, when the acquiring companies are behemoths covering half the board, it's often a better idea to trade for shares of the bigger company, since that is a really cheap way of getting that blue chip stock. If you're wise enough to really load up with the smaller company, you might even land a majority stakeholder position with the acquiring company. As an illustration of how this works, let's watch the story of the Hydra Corporation. That's this orange one here, that got formed no fewer than 3 times over the course of this particular game. A new company incorporates, by the way, whenever a player lays a tile besides another that is all by itself on the board. Only 6 companies can be on the board at a time, but a company that vanishes due to a merger can still come back later if there's still room for it. Dennis ended up forming the 3rd Hydra of the game on this side of the board when it was just 1 tile away from acquisition from the enormous purple and blue companies. What happened next was not particularly surprising.
Welcome back, Hydra.
Take your share.
Free Hydra?
I'm buying Hydra as much as I can.
Come on over.
Grubby hands.
Hydra, it says 3 is 900.
So now you're splitting the... I should have bought a little more, I guess. Oh well.
I think because of the weird-ass distribution of the shares, I'm gonna buy 3 Hydras.
Jeez.
For only 600, which is
I know, it's a bagging. Bagging.
Yeah, I'm buying Hydra.
Yeah, it's not.
So 3 shares for 900.
Nice.
They're like
And-
Akamai or something.
And I am in everything.
Yes, the players enacted their own little dot-com bubble as they struggled to become a majority stakeholder in the startup before its inevitable absorption into Google or Yahoo over here, because they all wanted to get the most shares of the bigger company on the cheap. When Joe finally laid down the tile that connected it, the game came to an end, as it always does when a single corporation exceeds 40 tiles in size, or when none of the corporations left standing are small enough to be acquired. The players then calculate their respective net worth based on both cash and stock holdings, and the richest player wins.
I just made $24,000 off that company?
Yeah,
Oh my god.
it's pretty exciting.
Only at 38.9.
36.2.
Game was closer than I thought it was. I have 44.
I was in second? I thought there was no way that was going to happen.
As of 2007, the game is not currently being published by anyone, but copies of various older editions are available at reasonable prices on sites like eBay and BoardGameGeek.com. You can also find various unsanctioned digital versions out there. I've been told about an old text-based game called Hotel that was written for the Unix operating system back in the day. Rather less obscure is the website GetHostile.com, run by Attic Labs. The user interface is not anything to write home about, but it does indeed let you play for free a game remarkably similar to Acquire against automated opponents and other online humans. Personally, I think I like the online game a little better, since it keeps a running total of all the players' stock holdings and net worths, and generally moves a lot faster. So, Joe, I actually didn't play Acquire with y'all, but I have played it with you online some.
Yes.
And I was there when you all were playing it in the board game version. So how do you compare, like, say, the physical board game version versus the electronic version?
Well, for the first penetrating glimpse into the obvious, I would say it was a joy in the online version not to worry about so many bookkeeping details. I think there's a class of player out there that actually enjoys the sort of details of bean counting and seeing how many shares are out and things like that. But I actually prefer computers do that element of it and let me decide what needs to be bought and when. So I like the computer version. I can crank through a 3-player computer version 10 minutes.
Yeah. Do you play against real people, or is it just against the automated
I
players?
have played against real people, and just the Get Hostile version, the online version, works pretty well, but again, there's some vagaries of the interface that I think slow the game down. So when I play against computer opponents, it's really a very fast
The board game is awful pretty.
The board game is pretty, and I do like this, especially the 60s style design.
Yes.
It's very charming, but I would also, in a strange way, the obvious comparison is to something like Monopoly. And Monopoly is a lot more cartoony and a lot more the simple game. When you look at Acquire, the Acquire board, it is very abstract. It's a little
stark.
It's very stark. It's a little scary because it's in a Cartesian plane, and you have coordinates. And I think for younger players, that may be not very attractive. Great game. Obviously, a lot of it depends on sort of remembering what your opponents are doing. So that's an element to the board game. Taking advantage of the fact that bookkeeping is hard, it adds an element to the gameplay.
Do you think there's a psychological element to it, like figuring out what your opponents want to do and what companies they want to get in on? Yeah,
there's absolutely psychological. But in the board game, I mean, you're in for an hour of entertainment with 4 people. At least.
Yeah, it does seem to take an hour.
And unfortunately, the most fun happens in the last.
Right.
The last half.
The
of
rest
the game.
of it is all build up.
Yeah.
I would say like the last quarter of the game almost. Or third.
And again, it's the whole thing of managing your money because it's very easy to get. You don't get money every turn, so you only get money when there's an acquisition. And from the time when you buy your last stock till you get an acquisition that brings you in money, can be a long stretch.
Do you think it's one of those games where you can get knocked out of play early on and have no chance of catching back up later?
It is. There's the random element of the tiles that you get. So if you are unlucky, you've built yourself into a corner where you have a lot of stock in small companies, but you don't have the connecting pieces for a merger. So now you're at the whim of luck to get those pieces, or somebody else is going to make the merger.
But you can buy stock in any company.
You can buy stock in any company, but I think you'll find that you can get in a position where you play strategic investments. You could get this, where you play strategic investments where you don't have the connecting pieces to make the merger happen when you need it to happen. If you're relying on somebody else making that merger for you, you might be in for a very long wait.